Hello and welcome to Fantasy Smack Talk. I'm Namco sitting here with Dustin. Let's get right into the waiver wire for your fantasy baseball, and Dustin's going to start you off with some pitchers.
And we start with Matt Latos. We talked about him each of the last 2 weeks, but still only owning 65% of leagues.
Pick this guy up. For the love of God.
6 straight quality starts. That's an amazing stat for a young pitcher. We really like this guy moving forward. Pick him up now if he's available. Next, another young pitcher we really like, and John Eli with the Dodgers, only owning 35% of leagues. He has a whip under 1, which is very impressive this far into the season. Good K counts. Again, another great young pitcher who should be owned in almost all leagues. Only on 35% of leagues.
It's nuts.
Moving on, we got Irvin Santana owning 70% of leagues. You know, this guy's never had a hard time getting strikeouts. We know he has an upside. He's starting to show some signs of promise this year. You know, he's had good years in the past. We think this guy's a good gamble to pick up at this point in the season. And a guy to keep an eye on is the young pitcher Sanchez out there with Florida, only owning 30% of leagues. Right now he's having problems with walks, but if he can get those walks under control, he could definitely be a decent pitcher moving forward.
And I'm going to talk about some relief pitchers, and the first one's John Axford, from Milwaukee. He's only owned in 15% of leagues. We all know about Hoffman's recent struggles, and this guy's gotten 2 saves now in the last couple of contests. He might be the new closer, so keep an eye on that. Next we have Dotel for the Pittsburgh Pirates, owned in 60% of leagues. I know what you're thinking. He started the year awful. How could we pick him up? He pitched 11 innings. He had 16 Ks, 8 saves, and a win all in that time frame with only giving up 1 earned run.
That's nuts.
Right there, you got to own him if he's available in your league and just at least ride this out. And then we have Jason Frazier. Now, he's a setup man, but Kevin Gregg out there for Toronto is playing terrible. We were really high on Frazier coming into the year. He won the closer job, pitched bad, got kicked out. Now with Gregg playing bad, it's, you know, who's going to be the new guy? It's going to be Scott Downs, it's going to be Frazier. We're thinking it's going to be Frazier, so keep an eye on the situation. If he does end up taking over the closer duties, you should definitely pick him up.
Alright, we got a couple of hitters for you, and I got one on Corey Hart. You know, he's quietly tied for second in the league with 14 home runs.
No idea.
And he's only owning 60% of leagues. Now, his batting average isn't that great, and you know, he was one of the biggest prospects a few years back, but he never really put together that huge fantasy season. But he's still young enough to where it could happen. You know, only on 60% of leagues, we think he's definitely worth an ad if you need some power in the outfield.
Yeah, I was shocked to see that amount of home runs when we were doing the pre-research for the show. And then the last hitter we're going to talk about is Chipper Jones. Yep, Chipper's owned in about 60% of leagues, and I know he's always got the injury concern. And he started off the year really slow, but he's raised his batting average 35 points in the month of May. Now the power numbers aren't there. He only hit 1 home run in that time frame. But if you need to plug a hole in third base, you could do a lot worse than Chipper.
Moving on, we're going to talk about setup men and how they can help your team a lot in certain leagues. In leagues where you get minimum inning requirements for your pitching, not maximum innings, but minimum innings where it's best to just get your innings and get out, we really like having good setup men on those teams. They don't really hurt you that much. More than likely, they're going to give you a good ERA and whip. They're going to give you decent strikeout totals, and they get a decent amount of wins. So if you have a good one, they can really help your team almost as much as a good closer. Now, also, if there's something that happens to the regular closer, these are going to be the guys that are first in line to take over that role. So if you can find a good setup man, they really do help your team in certain leagues. And
here's 3 guys that we definitely like, and they're all owned in 20% of leagues. And the first one's Luke Gregerson of San Diego. We have Evan Meek of Pittsburgh. We actually love this kid. And then we have Sean Marshall of Chicago. So those are 3 of these guys that Dustin's talking about here.
Moving on, we got a little segment I like to call It's About Beeping Time.
It's about beeping time.
And we start with Jose Reyes. This guy got off to a terrible start. You know, we actually liked him coming into the season for where you can get him in the draft, but started off terrible. But in his last 12 games, he's had 8 multi-hit games, and he's really caught on fire lately.
Yeah, it's about time. I own him in both my leagues. Then we have Mark Teixeira. Now, historically, very slow start, and before the month of May, he was only batting 153. Now, he's bumped it up 68 points to 221, and it's still terrible, but if you can trade for him and still get him cheap, that's great. It's about time he's doing a lot better.
Next, we got Rajat Davis with Oakland. We were really high on this guy coming into the year, but got off to a terrible start, but get this. Last 10 games, 10 stolen bases, and he's raised his average 21 points. And he's moved back up to the top of the lineup, so he's going to have a lot more stolen base opportunities.
Next we have Adam Dunn, raised his batting average 45 points in the month of May. 6 home runs, he's been playing a lot better. Again, he's just picked it up, he's playing well.
Next, Jose Lopez. The one thing we like about him the most is his player eligibility with first, second, and third. He got off to such a terrible start. He got dropped in so many leagues. But he has an 8-game hit streak going right now, and he's raised his average 28 points during that time.
And our last guy, it's about time, is Victor Martinez. He was killing me all year, but he's raised his batting average 44 points. He's playing a lot better, and he was going very early because of that catcher eligibility, so I'm sure any of his owners are pretty happy that it's
about time he turned it around. Well, that's it for this week's show. As always, get into our forums if you got any questions. I'm Dustin, this is Brent. We'll see you next week.